Welcome to tonight's
Tonight,
Trey and Mari Tell All.
yes, we are recording. What time is it?
It's
9:30?
It's 9:22.
9:30 p.m. We haven't had dinner yet, so we brought a little snack
Yeah, don't recommend having dinner at 10 p.m.
and so on.
But we made it fun tonight. Okay, we had a lot of work to do. Yes, clean. We had a lot of work to do, and we were like, and this just shows you how crazy we are. Okay, this is just something that we would do. We had a lot of work to do today, and so instead of making a quick, easy dinner, we were like, no, let's make dinner fun, and let's make the handmade pasta and bruschetta recipe that we learned in Italy 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Which takes about 2 hours to simmer, at least.
So we got the ragu sauce on the stove. It's simmering, and now we have time to record a podcast.
Hey, I'm your host, Trey Wagner, and you're listening to the Ever Be podcast, where faith meets lifestyle. I'm so excited you're here. Whether you're a new listener or a longtime follower, I know there's something here for you. Pull up a chair and listen in for insightful, real-life conversations and actionable steps on how to claim the full life God created you for. If you're a woman desiring to live a Christ-centered life in today's modern world, then this is for you. Welcome to Ever Be. Exactly. So, and then we'll hand make the pasta and have a great night. We were dancing in the kitchen to Volare by Frank Sinatra and other great Italian hits. I'm pretty sure Frank Sinatra is like American New York, but it's Italian. So
It's American Italian.
It's American Italian. We'll be snacking. We have our wine. Fun fact, which is not about this wine, but it's about the wine that we're going to have tonight at dinner. Do you want to share about that fun fact?
Yeah, so when we left staff with Focus, we traveled to Europe as a fun, celebratory new chapter of our lives.
Yes.
And when we were in Italy, we went on this winery tour. It was super cool. It was this Riccasoli family winery, and they had a castle and a winery on their property, and this property has been in the family for generations, and they make wine, obviously. And so we did the wine tour and a tour of the castle, and then we carried like 4 bottles, like somehow in our suitcase through the next like 3 countries we went to and all the way home.
And this is what's funny. I was telling a friend about this recently because I knew we were going to have an Italian night soon where we were going to open one of these bottles of wine. I was trying to remember how we got the bottles of wine. We didn't just buy them.
Oh, that's right.
We didn't just buy them.
Right. Mari did some bartering.
Yeah, we had just bought the whole like wine tasting experience package, and that included dinner, but we forgot that included dinner, or maybe it was lunch, whatever. It included the meal, and then we forgot about that, so we actually paid for our lunch, and then after...
It was a nice restaurant, so...
Oh, it was really nice.
It was
expensive. It was a good meal, and we ordered a lot because we were like, when in Italy? And after we paid, I realized, wait, like everybody on our tour decided to eat here too. Like, how fun is that? And then the waiter was like, oh yeah, it's part of the tour they did. And I was like, no, we were on that tour too. He's like, oh, well, your meal is included. And I look back at the tickets, and sure enough, our meal was included. We had totally forgotten. So, I went up there and talked to the waiter, cashier person, whoever's at the front desk. And I was like, hey, explaining the situation. We totally forgot. Like, surely you could just refund us the dinner, and we already paid for it. We'll be on our way. And I guess they don't do that in Italy.
They don't do refunds.
They don't do refunds.
But they have unlimited wine at the winery. So they're like, kick some wine.
So my Colombian came out. For those of you who don't know, I was born in Colombia, South America. I'm 100% Colombian. And sometimes it comes out. Sometimes I get a little bit spicy. And I was like, oh, well, first of all, I tried to argue for the refund for a while, and then they did not concede to that. So then I was like, okay,
Italian
then I would like
Colombian.
Italians versus Colombian. And so then I was like, okay, fine. Then I want the full value of my meal in bottles of wine that I can take home. And they were like, okay, like, we'll give you, like, 4." And I argued up to, like, 6 bottles of wine, and we took home 6 bottles of wine. It was, like, 2 whites and 2 regular reds and 2 of, like, the
Reds.
fancy reserve reds.
Mhm.
And we shared some with friends, some with family, some we had ourselves, and then one of, like, the super fancy, they call it the reserve wines that are best aged, we've been saving for
For
3
years.
years now. Has it been 3 years? Or
I
2
think
and a
so.
half?
Yeah, I think 3 years.
I think it's been 3 years. This will be the 3rd summer,
Yeah.
and we've just been waiting to open it for a special occasion. And so,
We were supposed to open it when I quit my job, but
about a month ago
that
or
didn't
2.
happen. Life got carried away, and so here we are,
So we're
a
doing
month
it
and a half
tonight because
later.
it's never too late to celebrate. So that's our intro for today. But if you saw the title of the podcast, it's Q&A with Mari and Trey. And I asked on Instagram, what do you want to know? What questions do you have for us? I said pretty much anything is on the table. We got a ton, so we obviously won't be able to get through all, but I think we'll pick out kind of like some of the top ones that we feel like are either really good to answer or intriguing or a little spicy or just funny. So here we go.
Don't mind me eating here.
Where do you want to start?
We got a lot, so just grab one.
Okay, this one was asked often. It was a two-part question. One, several people asked, what is your love story? So before we get started, let us just direct you to, I'm pretty sure it's like literally episode 2 of the
Yeah,
podcast
2 or 3.
called Our Love Story. So
Yeah.
start there. It's a good one.
Come back.
And then come back. And then part 2 of the most often asked question was, what did your discernment process look like for marriage? So maybe the question is kind of like, how did you discern marriage? Or like, how did you discern you were right for marriage,
How
like
did
for
you
each other,
how do you know that they were the one?
that they were the one? Exactly.
Want me to go?
Yeah, go ahead.
I would say, I think one of the, at least for me in our relationship, one of the biggest telltale signs was I just came alive, like truly alive when I was with you. And obviously, like when you're first starting dating, you have all the feelings and you're like, of course you don't want to be apart from each other. You're making a mess.
Okay.
You just probably shouldn't podcast it. But yeah, I mean, I think it, like if you come alive and the person is making the other person, the significant other is making you a better person, and you feel like, I think for an example, I felt like I kind of came out of the shell when I was with Mari. So obviously that's not going to be the case for everybody, but I felt like I myself came more alive. Like the good parts of me became better, and the not so good parts of me were tamed down. So that's what I would say.
Did you feel like more like yourself?
Yeah.
Because I remember feeling that a lot. And I feel like it was similar. I remember that very early on into our friendship, something that kind of caught me off guard was how comfortable I was and how like little I overthought anything I was saying or doing, which, I mean, would you say I'm like an overthinker?
Yeah.
Like a lot?
I would say you're an overthinker,
Okay.
but maybe not an extreme.
Okay. Well, women in general tend to overthink a lot. I don't feel like I'm an extreme, like I have friends who are like way more extreme overthinkers, but I would say I'm still an overthinker. But I'm sure women listening in have experienced this before where you just kind of catch yourself overthinking, or maybe you don't even realize, but like you're just kind of like anxious or just like, oh, did I say something that was weird? Or did I do something that was off? Or like, how do I particularly act or talk or present myself in a way that's going to like make him like me more? Like, those are all thoughts that I had in the past. And I think it sort of surprised me because I didn't even realize because I was so like, on like you said, like a shell or like a guard was like I was so unguarded that like
I
I
like that,
was
unguarded.
so myself. And I like it's like my weird side came out. It's like I realized, wow, I'm like really weird
Yeah. Thought you were
when we were
normal.
together. thought I was
Yeah, you
normal.
prided yourself on being normal until.
And I remember thinking like, wow, there's very few people who like know my truest self. And that would be
Mhm.
like my two best friends and my family. And now this guy that I just met like 3 weeks ago.
Yep.
And that just like developed over our relationship.
Yeah, mine both those are great. They're
Yeah.
kind of similar sides of the same coin.
Yeah. So I mean, that's a really good indicator that like
Mhm.
you're with the right person, I would
Yeah.
say. What about this like specific discernment of marriage with each other? There's a lot of prayer involved with that
Mhm.
we had. A lot
Yeah.
of like guidance and mentorship.
Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest thing is discernment. Don't get caught in that word and in that mindset of just no action but all prayer. Discernment is actually an action. So it actually means going on dates. It means exploring the next steps. It means having those deeper conversations and actually taking action, and not just sitting in prayer or just like in your head trying to overthink things. So I'd say one, discernment's an action, but then two, obviously it involves prayer for sure. And we had some spiritual mentors and spiritual directors that helped guide that process. So I'd recommend that for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. As I think back, I feel like it was mainly guided by those spiritual mentors that we had. We each had like a priest that was like speaking into our lives. And then we kind of had a mutual like faith mentor that we both
Yeah.
kind of shared that I feel like kind of walked us through just our faith life during those years that we learned a lot from. But I'll speak to one thing I think that many people feel is this fear that God is not going to grant them the vocation that they desire. And so I think where I commonly see this is women asking, like, what if I'm called to be a sister? What if I'm called to religious life? And it's always asked or said with this fear of just like, I like have always wanted to be married. Like, what if God doesn't want that? Now, through your discernment process, you can come to you will come to what the Lord's will is for you. And in the end, whatever his will is what's going to bring you the most joy. So just know that. But the other thing that I learned through this discernment process when we were dating was that when you're in relationship with Jesus, like your wills are aligned. So this is like when you are not in mortal sin, right? You're in a state of grace, you're in constant prayer, like you have a prayer life where you like actually speak to Jesus and allow time for silence to hear him, to connect with him. When you are really like in tune with the Lord, your wills are naturally aligned because when we are in a state of grace and when we are in relationship with Christ, our soul is just naturally oriented towards God and naturally oriented towards his will. And so those desires that you have on your heart are really from the Lord and are even placed there by Jesus. And so I think one of my fears, I remember I was like at this retreat, one of my fears was that I loved God so much, I was growing my faith so much and like what if God was calling me to be a sister? I think
What if I
I
love God too much and have to be a sister?
what if I love God too much and I have to be a sister? And I I was an intern for Focus at the time. I was at the training for the missionaries as an intern, but there you're surrounded by many young religious, many young priests, many young sisters, and I'd never seen that before, and I'd never seriously considered a religious vocation. So it kind of like sparked just like a interest in like maybe I need to discern this. Anyways, it was kind of like eating away at me all summer because I found myself just like prayer begging God, please don't let it be it. Please don't let it be it. Please don't let it be it. Instead of like, Lord, show me what your will is. And then I went to spiritual direction with a priest and spoke to him about it. And he had me do like a exercise of mental prayer of just like going to the place where I meet Jesus, a place of peace. Imagine Jesus with you. I think he had me like open my hands and like put everything that was weighing me down in my hands. And this whole anxiety and fear of losing our relationship, of becoming a sister, of losing this dream of marriage and motherhood that I had, and offering it to Jesus and letting go and seeing like what Jesus placed in my hand in return. Like after I emptied my hands, what did Jesus actually place in my hands? And in my prayer, I felt marriage and motherhood. And I even asked him, I was like, well, Father, like, this is what I want. This is what I desire. So, like, is this just me or is this actually God? Like, is this just me, like, saying that it's marriage and motherhood that Jesus put in my hands because that's what I want? Or is that actually God speaking to me? And his response was very simple. It was, have you ever desired to be a sister? And I was like, not really. No. He's like, do you have any sort of inkling, any like even small bit of interest or desire or feeling like the Lord is maybe calling you there? And I was like, honestly, no. He's like, is there any like peace when you think about it? Or is there anxiety? Like, what do you feel? I'm like, I am literally terrified that God will call me to do this. And that's where he was like, daughter. And he said the whole thing about the wills being aligned. He's like, your will is not the opposite of God's will. And I think that we spend a lot of our life feeling like what God wants is probably the opposite of what we want because we're so inclined to sin. But when we are in relationship with the Lord, when we are in a state of grace, our wills are aligned. And so he was like, the Lord just wants to give you the desires of your heart. If it's not a desire at all to be a sister, then you're probably called to marriage. And I felt like I had like the heaviest jacket like taken off of me, the biggest weight off my shoulders, and I could breathe. And that was kind of like the start of kind of that confirmation of like, yeah, I'm called to marriage. And then throughout the summer, I had different meetings with the spiritual director about what it looked like to discern engagement. That was the next step.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, ultimately surrender your will to God, be in prayer, try to do the Lord's will, and have spiritual mentorship.
Yeah. You can always ask your parish priest, or if you're in college, sometimes if you go to a Catholic college, like you'll have like a pastor or a, what's it called? Chaplain. Any one of these priests could probably do spiritual direction if you've never done that before. Okay, next question. Okay, this one is mostly for Trey.
Oh, no.
How do you tell a guy who's interested in you but hasn't quite asked you out yet that you don't like him?
Play the friend card. Play it multiple times. It's the biggest message.
Like be obvious that you're friends.
Be painfully obvious that you're friends. I think even the most thick-headed will get it.
But how do you do that without being flirty?
No, you just make comments of like, I'm so happy we're friends. Like, you're such a good friend. Like, you don't have to be, don't be flirty.
Don't be
Like,
flirty,
Don't
yeah.
be flirty. Definitely don't be flirty. Be very friendly, but like explicitly say the word friend a couple times.
And that'll come off. Yeah. Okay. Short and sweet.
Short and sweet.
Okay, next question. How to handle a smooth transition with all the change that comes with marriage, moving, new job, etc.
I think first, let go of the word smooth, or let go of whatever ideal you think you have.
Expectations. It's all about managing expectations.
Yeah. It's gonna be messy. Life's messy. Not gonna be what you want it to be. Mara and I have tried for weeks on end to have the perfect schedule that we want, and it never happens. So, especially when you're going through transitions, like, I think the biggest piece of advice would be to, like you said, let go of the expectations. Just try your best and give yourself grace. What was the second part of the question?
No, it's all the same. It's just like how to have a smooth transition with all the change that comes with marriage, moving, new job, etc. So,
okay, so practicals.
Just like the newness of marriage, of like living with a new person you've never lived with, and adjusting to a lot of things that come with like sharing a life instead of just being like on your own.
Yeah, so one is mindset. Being okay with the messiness and giving yourself grace and your partner grace. Then I would say 2, find community, have the man find men's community, have the woman find a woman's community. Be the awkward person who asks somebody to hang out.
Yeah.
Invite people over for dinner. I think that's the biggest thing is like when you move into a new neighborhood or a new apartment, like meet your neighbors the first couple of weeks, or else it's too much time will go by and it'll be weird to introduce yourself. So just get it out of the way early.
I would say like have a mindset of selflessness I think that when we live alone, we get into our grooves of just living for ourselves and like our personal schedules, our routines, how we like to do things, or the time that we like to wake up or go to bed, or like when we used to do our chores and whatnot.
Mhm.
And, we go from living, sometimes on your own or with the house of like other people, and you just do your 2 dishes a day to then sharing all the chores in the house. And that's just like a very practical small example, but I think leaning on the air of selflessness of always just being like, okay, like it's not just about me. I have to serve my spouse as well as take care of myself, or I have to think of them as well, or I have to put their needs above mine sometimes as well. Just having that mindset and that disposition of heart will make it smoother, because it can be a rough transition at first to be
Oh,
like,
yeah.
oh my gosh, life is not just about me. As much as you love this person, you actually just like your time just flies by. Like your time just becomes so much less when you're married. I don't know
Mhm.
why. There's just like more things to do. And a lot of it is beautiful. A lot of it is like you just want to spend time together, but just being selfless with your time and your energy. And yeah. I think another one would be just like having a really open, honest line of communication. Um, Transitions are different for everybody. I would say the first few months of our marriage were like really smooth and beautiful. And maybe like 6 to 9 we hit some like rocky parts. But I've heard some people's like first month of marriage is like super hard. Or first months or first year. You hear that often. We're like, your first
Mhm.
year is the hardest. I think your first year could also be like, the dreamiest, but there's also so much transition and change that it can be challenging. And having a super open line of communication allows for things not to build up, or for there to be like unhealthy habits that are formed in your relationship. So right off the bat, those first months of marriage, and maybe this is what makes it rocky. I don't know, but I'm all for like healthy confrontation. Is like if something is bugging you, if you are hurt by something, if there's like a pattern of things that like you don't like in your relationship, being consistent about bringing those up is going to help you guys work through that and kind of get to the root of like, why is this happening? What is like the true intention, that's coming from my spouse? How can we readjust? Like, how can we apologize and grow and move on and love each other better? And then I feel like you're setting a foundation, one of honesty, of like, hey, we're both growing, we're both imperfect, and we both want to love each other better. And then you're also setting a foundation of just like learning to love each other better faster.
I love that. Very insightful.
Okay, I want you to pick the next question. I need a bite of bruschetta.
Brisk.
You can hold my wine?
Did you guys think y'all were attractive from the beginning? Heck yes.
Nah.
Took a good 3
Wait,
months.
actually?
Took a good 3 months for me to warm up to you.
Wait, that was a joke. But
That was a joke.
actually, mine was a joke, but also kind of not. Because remember, like, it's not that I didn't think you were attractive, but like, I just really saw you as a friend. And then it was like all of a sudden one day we sat down at the cafeteria and I was like,
No, one of your friends mentioned to you that I was cute, and then you got really jealous.
and then my eyes were open and I was like, wait,
Wait, no,
this man is
he's
so
my cutie.
attractive. Like, what are you talking about?
Let's see. What are your coffee orders?
Ooh,
Mari, I'm gonna have you go first here.
wait, why don't we guess each other's?
I already know yours.
Well, good. You should.
I think I'd be harder to guess.
Yeah, you would be. What's
Go for
mine?
it. It's either a matcha or
What kind of matcha?
a matcha latte with 1 pump of vanilla,
Yes. Whole milk.
whole milk. I mean, if you're not doing whole milk, what are you doing?
I don't know, man. Some people are still on this like almond
That's
milk,
got the most
oat milk
froth.
train.
Whole milk's got the most froth. Or if it's not that, then it's a chai tea.
Yeah, I'm definitely more of a tea girl. I like coffees at home, but I feel like
So, what's your coffee order? Tea.
my coffee order is tea. I like coffees at home, but I feel like coffees at a coffee shop are so strong that they make me jittery and I don't like how that feels.
Yeah.
Okay, yours? Your most common order is just black coffee. I feel like, though, you also like cappuccinos.
I mix it up. I don't have a normal coffee order.
I
It's
was gonna
either
say, you also like an
Americano
Americano
or cappuccino
or black coffee.
or just black coffee.
See, I got them all right.
Or
Or a chai.
just
You like the
if I
chai.
want something sweet, it's either a iced vanilla chai or it's an iced vanilla coffee. But that's never in the morning.
Yeah, we've been working on no coffee first thing in the morning. Get your protein in, people. Oh, this is going to be a
Okay.
fun episode.
Okay. Newlyweds here. How do we get better at praying together?
Love it. We should have a whole episode on this.
On praying together?
Yeah,
That'd be good.
that would be
But
really
give
good.
me your 30 seconds.
Okay, my 30 seconds is pray together every day. The easiest, we've talked about this before, probably on my Instagram, the easiest thing to do is to pray together before bed. I would encourage that you guys try to go to bed at the same time. I've recently learned that a lot of couples don't go to bed at the same time. And so I think this could make it difficult if you don't go to bed at the same time. Maybe you try and wake up at the same time. You do this something in the morning, but our thing is to pray before we go to bed every night, and it could be anywhere from a minute to a few minutes, depending on how sleepy we are. But basically, we take turns just freestyle prayer and just thanking the Lord for our day and our health, our families, just our list of things that we're grateful for, and then any petitions that we have on our heart, any specific ways that we're trying to intercede for our family or friends or intentions that people have entrusted to us. And that's about it. And then it's easy.
Breezy.
And in a Hail Mary or a Glory Be or something like that every single night.
And then we've recently been on a rosary kick. So we've been praying the rosary a bunch together.
Yeah. I've loved that.
Which has been great. Awesome.
It's been awesome.
So we tried it every day.
Yeah. We've kind of just been doing that before bed, before our prayer time too.
Yeah. And then the other thing you could do is just do Lectio together. So read scripture together, meditate on scripture together, and like talk about what you feel like the Lord's speaking to you through scripture. And I mean, that could be anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes, but
to 30 minutes to 40. I mean, that could go a long time.
Yeah. All those are great options.
And just like, don't be afraid to put like a schedule on it or like a goal on it. I think a lot of the times people are like, oh, if we put parameters on prayer, then the prayer won't be authentic and won't be good enough. And that's not true. Like if it's helpful for you to be like, hey, we're going to have like couples Bible study once a week, like Monday nights is just us two and we're going to pray through the book of John, or like Thursday mornings before work, like we're going to go to adoration together or something like that. If you have something on the calendar that's like kind of like a sacred time, like even if it's 30 minutes, you're going to get around to it more and don't feel like it makes that prayer time any less, because it totally doesn't.
Well, the other thing too is intercessory prayer for each other. So if like Mari will ask me like, hey, I'm feeling really stressed or feeling really anxious or whatever she's going through at that time.
Or if I'm sick.
If you're sick, like she'll just ask me to pray for her. And so then I can just like lay my hands on her and intercede for her, and or vice versa. If I'm going through some hard times or just dealing with some things, I can ask for her to intercede for me as well. It's really powerful.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to toss this one your way, Mari.
Should we do a spicy one?
How did you guys stay chaste?
Spicy.
Tips would be helpful.
Spicy or not spicy? How to not be spicy before you're married?
Would be appropriate.
How to be appropriately spicy. That's going to be a hot topic.
Get into that.
We're not going to get into that. Okay. Chastity while we were dating. I would say, yeah, of course we struggled.
And it was hard.
And it was really hard.
Yeah. And that's okay. Like,
yeah.
I think there's freedom knowing that it's okay for it to be hard. Like, it's probably a good thing that you're sexually attracted to each other. I would say that's a really good thing.
I would hope so.
Yeah. So want to recognize that it's not abnormal. It's not like wrong to be sexually attracted to each other. You just need to learn how to channel it in the right ways, and depending on what stage of life you're in.
And I would say we have so many things that we could talk about in this topic, but one of the two things come to mind right now. One is that even if you're struggling, one, like just start again. It is absolutely
Oh my
possible
gosh.
to save sex for marriage, right? That is
Mhm.
the goal, the hope, that sex is the sacred act between husband and wife. Um, and even though we struggled in chastity, we were still able to save ourselves for
Yeah.
marriage, like sex for marriage. Two, I've heard this a lot recently too from other friends. I don't know why it's come up, but it's a saying that like the devil is going to try to get you to have as much sex as possible before you're married and as little sex as possible after you're married. So, one, when you're dating, it's like you're on this like honeymoon level where it's like you just want each other so
Yeah.
bad. But at the same time, there's a level of like spiritual attack on your relationship. If you are a
Absolutely.
good and holy, godly couple that like wants to be chaste, there's going to be a level of attack because the evil one wants to get you to sin. The evil one wants to pull you away from the Lord and from his beautiful intent for the sacred act of
And it
sex.
just shows how powerful that act is. Like the sexual intimacy between a man and a wife is, I don't know. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's great. It's amazing.
No, but it's like very spiritually powerful too, is what
Yeah.
I'm trying to say. Like that's why the devil is so
Yes. Oh my gosh, so spiritual. Okay, let's
Mhm.
talk about that. I think that's something like people don't actually know a lot about, and that's one of the things that convicted me in college to be like super committed about waiting till marriage. It's the whole spiritual reality of what sex actually entails. So, when you think of the Trinity, you know that it's three persons in one, and theologically, the way that it works is uh because of the love, like, the love between God the Father and Jesus, the love between them is, like, so selfless, so strong, so loving, so perfect that a third being emerges from that and is the Holy Spirit. So the Holy Spirit is essentially the love of God amongst many
Mhm.
things. But there's really no other thing that we see that emulates that like marriage. Because when a wife and husband come together in the sexual act, their love unites them as one and also brings forth a third, brings forth a baby.
Yeah.
You know, when scientifically it works and the Lord allows it to, it brings forth life. So it truly shows the sanctity of what the spiritual reality of what this is.
Mhm.
Um, I don't remember what I was saying.
You're gonna say something about the wedding vows?
Oh, yes, and then the wedding vows. Oh, this got me too, the wedding vows. When you stand at the altar and say your wedding vows to your husband, in the Catholic Church, you just have, like, the one option. There's, like, 2 variations, but it's, like, the same thing basically, and you don't get to, like, write your own wedding vows, like, you just say the vows that the church has given to us for this sacrament, and in it says, "I will be, faithful and fruitful and love you and all of these things all the days of my life." And I don't remember where I learned this. I think it was maybe a book I was reading or a talk, but I really reflected on those words all the days of my life within those wedding vows. And if you think about it, like all the days of your life are all the days of your life, not just the day of your marriage forward, right?
Or the day when you met that person
Mhm,
forward.
mhm, but, like, truly, that vow has the beautiful, like, intention for it to be all of the days of your life, from the first day of your life till the last day of your life,
Mhm.
and so that was an encouragement for me to be like, when I get up on the altar, I want to look at my husband in the eyes and say, "Truly, I, am committed to you and have saved myself for you all the days of my life." So, that was, like, a beautiful encouragement that I had to wait till marriage, and that we both
Yeah.
thought was awesome.
And then some
Yes, practicals.
practicals. Um, confession.
Mhm.
1,000%. Just get a confession as soon as you can after you fall. Don't let it's really easy to like fall and then just kind of give up and like go a few weeks of
Mhm.
continually falling over and over and over again. So best way to like cut that cycle is to just get to confession as fast as possible. Jesus wants to forgive you. He
Mhm.
wants you to start again.
He never gets tired of
He will
forgiving
never
you.
get tired of you.
The priest will never get tired of hearing you either.
And so go together. Like you can go together.
Can you?
Or not like in the same room together,
Oh,
but you
yeah.
can go back to back.
Yes, you can go, like, to the church together. Yeah. But you can't go in the same confessional. I think you can when you're married, though. We've never done that. Another practical. Okay, for these practicals, I just want you to hear me out here, because when we first started dating, we thought we were just like totally strong and invincible, and we were like, oh yeah, like we're gonna be great. To be fair, this was our first relationship where we were both committed Catholics that actually wanted to be chaste in our relationship and strive to save sex for marriage. And so it was very encouraging. And it is very hard if your significant other does not have the desire to wait till marriage. It's very, very hard. But we still struggled at times. And there were times where we actually had to set certain boundaries that at first I thought were like, we were too good for, that we're stupid and that we're just like dumb, like, why are we doing this? And they actually were very effective and helped very much. And so I just want you to hear this when we say them, like, they're not stupid. If you need to do them, it's not dumb. Like, they do work and you should do them. And there's our dog. Bodie, down. He just wants to get under the couch. Down, Bodie, down. So one of those would be to set a curfew. I think we had a curfew of like 10 p.m. or something like that. And an open door policy of like, we could hang out in my room if the door was open, or like we had to be hanging out downstairs in the living room, and you had to leave by 10 p.m. or like I had to leave your house by 10 p.m.
The door open policy is great when you have roommates.
The door open policy is honestly my number one recommendation.
Yeah. If you live by yourself, it kind of defeats the purpose. But
true.
If you live by yourself, just don't go in the bedroom, honestly.
Yeah.
But if you live with roommates, door open policy is a great policy.
Yeah,
for any room.
And then the curfew, I know it feels stupid. You're like, I'm totally old enough not to have a curfew, but it just gets harder after 10 p.m. And honestly, for the guy, it sucks because you always have to leave super late and you're exhausted. And another one that I've heard is 2 feet on the ground at all times. If you don't have 2 feet on the ground,
we haven't done that, but
risky things will happen. Okay, I'll take the next one. How to encourage your husband to lead the family, especially in regards to the faith.
You just ask yourself a question.
I just asked myself a question.
How do you do, Mari?
I want to also hear from you.
I will share, but
of like how you feel most encouraged.
Yeah.
I would say that I hear this question and desire a lot from women, wanting their husbands to lead. And I feel like what I've learned over the years is that women are a little bit more naturally or more easily like spiritually inclined. And I think that's just because we're more emotional. But that doesn't mean that like we have to be the ones to lead. And actually, the man is the one who is more inclined to like lead with authority and to have that like natural authority in his family as well as spiritually. Like it is spiritually true that a husband has authority over his wife and his home, which is why it's so powerful when a husband prays over his wife and children and blesses his wife and children. But one thing that I have learned and noticed, and in certain times when I feel like I desire this, try to hone in on, is to encourage more than to like criticize. And I think that that's something that's hard for me sometimes because I'm very hard on myself. And so sometimes it comes off like being hard on you or like being hard on people around me. And it truly just comes from like a desire to like be better, and to like grow. But we as wives have the power to break our husbands down or build our husbands up. And so in times when you desire your husband to lead more or to grow in an area or whatever, it's almost like you have to really stop and think like, okay, how actually can I shift my mindset and not see the ways that he's falling, the ways that I wish he was doing better, but like, what is he doing well now? How can I build him up and use words of encouragement to like nudge in the area of leadership, without just like a constant like, you should be doing this, you should be doing this, you should be doing this.
I mean, that's exactly what I was gonna say.
Okay.
Yeah, is err on the side of building up as opposed to tearing down. Um,
Like, what specifically, though, do you feel like you could say or do? Because I know
mhm.
also, like, there's cases too where, like, maybe, like, you're praising all the things your husband's doing well, but, like, if they're literally not leading in the faith at all,
Right.
you
I
have to
mean,
bring it
well,
up.
yeah. I
Like
mean, like
like, what do you
there's
say?
obviously going to be times where you can like ask, like, "Hey, husband, like, I would feel a great line would be like, I would feel really loved if you did this." That's received way better than saying, "Hey, you need to be doing this better," or "You need to be doing this more." Like, then it's something that, like, "Oh my gosh, I'm failing at that. I'm not good enough at that. I need to be better at that." Like, I feel like men are being told all the time through their jobs and throughout their day and from their wives and their kids, like, all the stuff that they need to do or need to be doing better. And so that's really exhausting. And so,
Mhm.
um, if you just frame the question or like the desire as like, "Hey, I would feel really loved if you did this," or like, "This would mean a lot to me if you like prayed with me every morning or prayed with me this day, or if you went to mass with me this day."
Yeah.
Um,
Or if you, like, initiated prayer yourself
yeah.
instead of me always being the one that's like, "Oh
Yeah.
my gosh."
Because, like, men wanna rise to the challenge, like, they want to love their
Yes.
wife, but they are gonna be less motivated to do that if their wife is just their biggest critic.
Yeah, I would say too, something that just came to mind is men want to rise to the challenge. Some might feel an intimidation to lead in the faith. Some might feel like,
Yeah, totally.
I don't know how to lead in the faith. I don't know what to do in prayer. Like some may not have had good formation or enough experience in their own prayer life to really lead their family and their wives. So maybe even suggesting like doing something together is a great start before you expect your husband to be the one initiating
Yeah.
uh, faith prayer or formation or whatever it is.
Mhm.
So just be like, hey, I would love for us to have some time to connect in our faith together. Like, what if we read a spiritual book together? Or what
Mhm.
if we read a book of the Bible or whatever together, someplace where you're like actively learning. And I feel like as you learn more, you gain more confidence and then or have practiced it once, then the husband can gain more confidence to then like
Sure.
initiate next time.
Yeah. Then the other thing too is, like, recognize when he does lead
Mm,
and notice that. Like, notice it enough to respond and respond generously and not be like, "Oh, I'm tired," or "Oh, I don't want to," or "Oh, I'm busy," or "Oh, the kids need me," or "Oh, I have this work to do." Like if you were desiring him to lead and if he steps out in courage to like try to do this thing that he's not comfortable with or doesn't have experience with or is scared of or what have you. Like, if he steps out and tries to do this and then he gets just shot down by you because you're too busy or you don't want to, or you're too tired, like, that's not gonna be very encouraging for him next time. So, 1, notice when he does that then you can respond generously, but then 2, notice because then you can praise him and, like,
yeah.
thank him.
Yeah.
And, like, if you notice enough to say thank you, like, that meant a lot to me, then the chances of the guy doing it again will be much higher.
Yeah. Last thing I'll say is try and find a couple friends or at least like encourage him to find other men in his life that are striving to be good Catholic and Christian husbands as well. That makes all the
That's
difference. I
huge.
feel like good men just are encouraged by good
Yeah.
men and are like challenged in the best way to be better men by each other.
Yeah.
And so like when you're in community with other guys and you just see them like treating their wives beautifully and leading their families in the faith, you're just immediately like soaking that up and you're encouraging each
Yeah.
other like, "Oh my gosh, we should all be
1,000,
doing this."
1,000.
Okay.
Two more.
How how to handle wedding night
Oh,
when it's your
yes.
first time? This is
I
me
love this question.
almost or no, this is almost me. I'm 3 weeks away from getting married.
Great, I hope you're listening. I love this question.
Trey's
Um,
excited to answer, so I'm gonna let you go first.
remove any sort of expectation or, like, scene from a movie or anything like you thought you imagined your first time being or your wedding night being, like, just get that out of your head and
100%.
recognize that it's just not going to.
And that doesn't mean it's gonna suck.
No, 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 no. It's
It's
going to
just
be
not
beautiful.
it's just literally not gonna be what you saw on a screen one day
Yeah.
in the rom-com movie that you love.
Yeah. And I mean, what else? How else? What more? How deep do you want to get into this?
I don't know how to handle wedding night when it's your first time. Um,
I think
something I would
to
suggest is,
go.
like, it's okay to talk about it before.
Yes,
I
that's what I
think,
was gonna
like, there's, like, a prudent window of, like, when you should talk about it, how often you should talk about it, like, maybe if you just started dating or if you maybe just got engaged. I don't know, like, how detailed you wanna get, but,
say.
like, as you're getting closer to the wedding, 3 weeks away especially, like, you can definitely talk about it.
I would encourage you to talk
Yes, like,
about it.
please. Yeah, I
Yes.
definitely encourage you to talk about it and talk about, like, "Hey, like, what do you think it's gonna be like? Like, what are your expectations? Like, what are you hoping for? Like, are you nervous about anything?
Yeah.
Like, do you wanna talk through anything?"
Because it's going to be new, and if you can't talk about it before you're doing it, how are you gonna be talking about it, like, while you're doing it? Because especially when it's your first time or first time together and,
Mhm.
like, you're learning w how to love the other person in this new and exciting way,
Mhm.
and that's going to require a lot of communication so that
Yeah.
it's done actually lovingly.
Yeah. Another thing I would add is just relax and leave time to, like, unwind together. One thing I didn't realize for, like, the wedding day was that I was going to be so exhausted. I had never heard a bride say how exhausted she was at the end of the day, and it doesn't mean it wasn't a good day. It was a great day, but truthfully, by 7:30 PM, I went up to Trey and I was like, "Hey,
How much
when do
longer?
we get to go home?"
Yeah.
You know? And I loved my wedding, like, party, but you're pretty tired at the end of the day, and it can be a lot, like, physically and emotionally. I think, like, there's a lot of, like, nerves and tension from the day that's, like, being released, like, your body is, like, unwinding, and
Yeah.
then it's, like, this big moment you've been waiting for. So, like Sherry said, remove expectations, but then take time. Don't rush, like, unwind.
Mhm.
Like, again, it doesn't have to be like the movies, and it probably won't be like the movies. It doesn't mean, like, you walk into your hotel room and you rip each other's clothes off, you know what I mean? Like, take a bath, like, take a shower,
Mhm.
like, lie down together, talk, like, we prayed before, like, we, like, said a
Mhm.
prayer before and had a little bit of time with God to, like, be with us in that time, so it's okay to just be in the moment and relax and don't have this pressure of this, like, super quick, passionate
Yeah. Yeah. It's gonna be not what you expected, but it's gonna be beautiful. And just talk through it. Just do your best to love each other and
Yeah. Last thing I'll say is coconut oil, and that's all we're gonna say on that.
it's a good alternative.
The good I'm all about clean living.
That's right.
Just don't get into the toxins.
It works wonders.
Coconut. Oh, my mom isn't listening. I
Last one, make it count.
feel like we need to do, like, 2 more. Okay, you choose one and I'll choose one. It smells so good. I can smell the pasta sauce, the ragu sauce. Smells like Italy.
There we go. If it's not too personal, struggles learning and applying NFP methods. I'm struggling right now.
Mm, that's really good. We have always tracked my cycle with Creighton. Um, that's one of the models that you can use.
Yeah.
Another popular one is Marquette. I would say those are probably the top 2 ones I
Or
hear
the
about,
symptothermal.
or Symptothermal.
Yeah,
Yes,
those are
those
the
are the
three
3.
main. Marquette is definitely, I feel like, a steeper, or sorry, not Marquette, Creighton, the one that we do, has a
Mhm.
little bit of a steeper learning curve. Like, it
Yes.
is
It's a little
a
bit more involved.
little bit harder to grasp on, but I mean, once you have, like,
Yeah.
it's not hard.
No, in the long
It's not
run, I
hard.
mean, like, give it a couple weeks and you'll be fine. We've
Like,
been doing it ever since, like, we were engaged,
yeah.
so literally, like,
Mhm.
5 years or something like that.
Yeah. So we do that. It's great. We love it.
I
I think it's super cool. I found it
Okay, yeah. Why did you think it was fascinating?
I mean, guys are never taught this stuff about women, and it was just cool to be like, oh my gosh, I like know my wife so much better now. I like understand a little bit deeper like what she's going through and how her body is responding to things and why, and then how like that relationship between man and woman and like just the intricacies and the way that God designed it all is really fascinating.
Yeah. I would say, since the question asks about challenges, like the challenges we faced with Crichton, I think, like Trey said, the learning curve at the very beginning, but that's only a few weeks. And then I think now, like 3 years into marriage, just keeping up with it, just like the
Yeah.
daily thing. Natural family planning can be used to both postpone pregnancy as well as achieve pregnancy. And so this is like a misconception. A lot of times people hear, oh, you do NFP, it means you're trying not to have kids. And that's not true. Like,
No.
we are actively trying to have kids, and we are still considered using NFP. And the reason why it's amazing is because NFP and Creighton tells you exactly where you are in your cycle every single day. Your body gives you physical markers of where you're at in your cycle, what your hormones are doing. And so you know when you're fertile and when you're not fertile. And using that information, you can choose, are we going to actively try and have a baby, or are we going to try and wait this month and not have a baby? I think we face some, there's like always some hardship. Like, if there's ever months where you're not trying to have a baby, like the first few months of our marriage, we were postponing pregnancy. And that's a challenge too, because you like when you postpone pregnancy, you're avoiding during the week of the month where your hormones are like flaring up, like
Wanting sex the most.
where your libido is like the highest as a woman. And so to be avoiding that month or that week is a little bit more challenging.
I would say too, I think when you are in that stage of life where you're postponing pregnancy, it's challenging because the guys are always ready to go for the most part, and the women, they have a much higher sex drive during the time when they're ovulating, and so
other than that, it's like you got to work to get there.
Yeah, like they might not want. They're just like just not gonna feel
as
inclined and like desirous of it the other times of the month when you actually are like able to have sex if you're avoiding that ovulation phase. So I think instead of letting that like build resentment or tension in the marriage where the guy's like, oh my gosh, like she never wants to have sex with me, or like, or you just like, if you guys aren't coming together in that way because it's so important, like I think you should need to talk about it. And then that's on the guy then also to be mindful of when his spouse is not in the ovulation phase and do a lot more work building up, not just like in bed, but like the hours, the day leading up to like romance.
Show love. Yeah, romance.
And build that up
in different ways. Yeah. So one thing I've heard too is also just those times of waiting take you back to when you were dating and when you were trying to be chaste and not have sex before you were married. How did you try and love each other then, and kind of go back to finding different ways to love each other that's not physically writing letters, going on a date, doing an activity together, just hugging, like whatever it is.
And I would say, I mean, ultimately, like pick a method.
Yeah.
If you're struggling, like continue to keep trying to learn it, but like pick one method and stick to it. Like regardless of where you are, like it will come in handy to track your cycle.
Yeah.
Whether you're trying to achieve, postpone, or just learn more about your own women's health, like that'd be huge.
And
it gives you a ton of information.
And I would say like encourage your fiance
or spouse.
Because this was a girl that asked, like encourage your fiance or your spouse to be involved in the process. There's a lot of guys who don't get involved and it's just the girl who tracks everything and knows everything. But like Trey said, it's been super impactful and life-changing for him to actually know all the ins and outs of the intricacy of women's bodies and his wife. Okay.
Last question.
Last question is, how long have you been trying? Heart hand. Heart emoji. Thank you for the heart. Thank you
Yeah.
for the love. I'm assuming they're asking how long we've been trying for a baby,
Mhm.
and that's been 2.5 years, a little
Well,
bit over 2.5 years. Like we just talked about, we didn't actively try for a baby. We were avoiding pregnancy for a few months. And
mhm.
then we started trying about 9 months into
Yeah, we're a little bit less than 9
marriage,
months.
or like 8 months or something like that.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, do you want to just like touch a little bit on like what it's like right now?
Yeah.
There was a few questions on this, so we
Um,
can just kind of do a quick overview.
yeah, I mean, it's hard. I think it's very challenging and, we go back and forth between, like, questioning God and, trying to figure out why, and then also just, like, trying to lean into him and lean on him for strength and encouragement. Um, I mean, we're at this point right now where we're just, like, still trying to figure out why. We don't really have a clear-cut answer right now. So that's also makes it a little bit more challenging because there's not like a
We've had like a few things come up that we have like addressed.
yeah.
We don't really share the details of like our medical journey or anything like that
Mhm.
publicly, but there's been a few things that have come up that we've addressed, but nothing that has like solved the problem.
Right.
Um, we're working with a really great doctor. We have a lot of hope.
Mhm.
Like Trey said, it's really hard emotionally, physically, spiritually,
Yeah.
in all aspects. It's the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life or ever gone through. I think you could maybe say
Yeah. Yeah.
similarly.
It's definitely
Um,
harder for you than me. I mean, it's hard for me, but it's
yeah,
definitely it hits a little bit different for you.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, but as hard as it's been, and this is totally, I'm literally able to say this because of the grace of God, because it's like I said, the biggest cross we've ever carried. There have been really beautiful fruits that have come from it, and I think that's, like, one of them is just such a greater intimacy in our marriage,
Mhm.
just, like, us being so united through
Yeah.
this and being our rock for each other and, like, biggest support system, because this is something people just don't understand until they're in it, and
Right.
that's just the reality. I remember hearing about, infertility when we were engaged or married, and it was just a floating word to me, and it didn't mean anything. And I had no idea really what that looked like. And even friends that are in it with us or walking alongside us, they have all the empathy and compassion in the world, but nobody really understands like your spouse that's going through
Mhm.
it. So it has been very uniting for each other, as well as uniting with our relationship with God, or at least for me. And that's because I've gone through trenches of
Mhm.
questioning so much and being so mad at God that he somehow brought me full circle, and has allowed me to experience all of the feelings and emotions and has given me the grace. And mostly Trey has really encouraged me, no matter what I'm feeling, to bring it to the Lord. Like if I'm super down or if I'm mad or if I'm hopeful or excited or trusting, whatever it is that I'm feeling, you encourage me to go to the Lord. And that has radically changed my relationship with the Lord in the past 2.5 years. And I'm grateful for that.
Mhm.
As weird as it is to say, it's like I'm grateful for my
Yeah.
relationship with the Lord, and I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's, we're never gonna know
Why?
what or like when God's timing is.
Or that, yeah.
Um, and there's nothing that we can do. That's the big thing is like ultimately there's nothing that we can do to like make the time now. Like it's God's time when it's God's time.
Mhm.
So just trying to adapt our will to his will and
To be
um
radically surrenderous.
yeah. And like in this time of like no kids, like just enjoying each other and trying
Mhm.
to find the way that God's calling us to live in this world and
Mhm.
serve him and serve the people around us and bring forth life to the world and to our family and friends without, a physical kid. And yeah, so that's what we're just trying to do, is just,
And that's been a gift
yeah,
too.
it's been great.
I mean,
A lot of gifts.
yeah, I know that once we're very confident the Lord is going to make us parents one day. And I know that once we have kids, it'll be beautiful and we'll never want to go back. But at the same time, we cherish this season so much of just us two, because we know it's fleeting in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah,
And
special.
it's very, very special. And you don't get a lot of time in your marriage, just you two. And so we've just had some really fun, beautiful, adventurous memories and experiences, a lot of travels, a lot of fun things that we've done together, just to kind of like enjoy this time. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well,
To wrap it up on that heartfelt note, we're now going to go eat our pasta.
but we should do this again.
We should do this again.
All right.
See you next week.
Ciao.
Ciao. Thank you so much for listening in. If you've enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and on social media, and give me a 5-star rating on whatever podcast platform you're listening on. That helps me and the show out so much. Also, make sure to follow the podcast on Instagram at EverBePodcast. And if you want more content like this and you don't already follow me, you can also follow me on Instagram at mari.c.wagner. And may his praise ever be on our lips. God bless.